Good afternoon, and greetings and welcome to the Post-Election Reflections webinar. As we get settled and members join, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. Write your name, your title, the organization you represent, and if you wish, a sentence about how your organization is preparing for the post-election climate. We will get started at 2:03 p.m. Okay, welcome. My name is Carrie Sequeira, and I am the administrator with the Office of School-Based Health Programs under the Whole Child Division, a division that was created under the leadership of our State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond. I am very happy to see so many LEAs present here today to learn best practices and resources to support our students navigating the realities of post-election. And in supporting our students, we are supporting the whole school community. Our webinar topics were chosen based on the voices from the field, and through our poll, we want to learn from all of you what your supports and resources that you need for our 6 million students. So let's go over the webinar objectives today. So first is provide information and resources around social media, facilitating healthy and safe conversations, provide mental health resources, and practicing self-care. I want to say I see you, and I thank you for sharing space with me today. I'd now like to introduce Miss Sarah Eaton. She is an Associate Governmental Program Analyst with a Bachelor's of Arts in English from California State University, Sacramento. Go Stingers. Sarah is passionate about education and youth advocacy. Her dedication to shaping impactful policies and programs reflects her commitment to enhancing the well-being of children. Please join us as she shares some social media tips during election season.
Hello, everyone. Today, I wanted to share some essential tips for navigating social media during the upcoming elections. Social media can be a powerful tool, but it can also become overwhelming. According to a Pew Research Center fact sheet published on September 17th, digital sources have become an important part of Americans' news diets, with social media playing a crucial role, particularly for younger adults. In fact, just over half of US adults, 54%, say they at least sometimes get news from social media, a slight increase from previous years. With that in mind, here are 10 tips to help you manage your online experience efficiently. The first tip is to limit your time on social media. Setting a timer for how long you want to spend online and consider turning off notifications to minimize distractions. I personally have a timer on apps like Instagram and TikTok. If you, if sorry, if I've been on either of those apps for 30 consecutive minutes, my phone notifies me, and I typically do a screen-free activity for at least 10 minutes, like stretching or going for a walk. This allows me to enjoy social media and prevents mindless scrolling. My second tip is to curate your feed. If certain accounts make you feel negative emotions, don't hesitate to unfollow or mute them. Surround yourself with positivity to enhance your online experience. Tip number 3 is to stay informed by engaging with community groups and diverse perspectives. This helps broaden your understanding of different viewpoints. Number 4 is my favorite, and it's to remember to take breaks. It's important to step away from social media and screens regularly. I personally like to reach out to family and friends to connect in person. Tip number 5 is to track your screen time. Monitoring how much time you spend online can help you access what's meaningful. I set up a 2-hour daily limit on my phone for social media apps, which helps me personally refocus. Tip 6 is to prioritize the content you engage with. Focus on communities and topics that matter most to you. Tip 7 is to audit your feeds. Take a critical look at the accounts you follow to avoid echo chambers and ensure a diverse range of content. Tip number 8 is to be skeptical. Be skeptical about the information you encounter and share. Approach politically charged content with a critical eye, especially when it evokes such strong emotions. Utilizing fact-checking websites like sorry, factcheck.org is an easy way to verify information before sharing it online. Tip number 9 is to create safe spaces on social media. Try to designate accounts or platforms where you can decompress that are separate from political discussions. And then finally, manage your stress. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, especially during elections. By controlling your social media usage and regularly engaging in non-screen activities, you can maintain a healthier balance. Next slide, please. I hope you find these strategies helpful as you navigate the complexities of social media, especially during the elections. Remember, while social media can be a powerful tool for staying informed and engaged, it's essential to prioritize your mental well-being. As you prepare for the upcoming elections, consider utilizing additional resources provided on this slide, as well as sharing these resources and tips with others. Again, these resources will be shared, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sarah, for the great resources you shared. I am honored to introduce Amy Becker, who serves as the coordinator of behavior intervention and mental health for the Orange County Department of Education. In this role, she has provided professional learning sessions, consulted on behavioral policies, and supported students and families in accessing behavior and mental health resources throughout Orange County. Throughout her career, Amy has held pivotal roles in school districts throughout Los Angeles and Orange County. Amy's career is marked by a passion for fostering a supportive educational environment where every student can thrive. Thank you, Amy, for being with us today.
I am better at navigating social media than forgetting to turn off my mute button, but I'm so grateful to be here today. And I want to thank Sarah for that great introduction to some of the tips for navigating social media that we're going to take a deeper dive into now. And I also want to recognize that this week is Digital Citizenship Week. So this is the perfect time to be having this discussion. So if you turn to the next page, we know that students are using social media as their source of news. So when data was collected in 2022, nearly 3 in 10 teens reported that they relied on Instagram as their primary news source. 28% of teens also reported that they received their news from TikTok and YouTube, respectively, and 77% of teens reported using at least one form of social media each day. If you can go to the next slide, please. We know that there are benefits to social media. So social media can be used to uplift current events and issues that might not be covered by mainstream media. Youth are easily able to access that news from multiple sources, and oftentimes it's free rather than pay-based. And social media is able to provide real-time updates on breaking news stories. But there are drawbacks to social media as well. The first is that journalistic integrity is not guaranteed. So users are able to spread disinformation online. And our social media algorithms are designed to promote sensationalized headlines. In addition, the sheer amount of information that's available via social media can be overwhelming and stressful for our students. If you can turn to the next slide, please. So our job is to help our students foster healthy social media engagement. And there are several ways that we can do this. We want to start by familiarizing ourselves with the functionalities and purposes of social media platforms. Our students engage with different platforms for different reasons. And so it's important to take their perspective and understand why they might be drawn to that type of platform so we can help them to navigate it in a more efficient way. We also want to promote social media literacy through discussions about the pros and cons of social media. We know our kids are using these apps and we know that there can be benefits. So we want to talk about that while also recognizing and teaching our students to avoid some of the pitfalls that they may experience regarding digital security and safety. As adults, we want to keep an eye out for any potential signs of problematic social media use. So this might include things like not getting enough sleep because of social media, saying that they don't want to use these apps, but continuing to use them anyway, experiencing strong cravings to check their phone or check their different social media platforms. And we want to help to model healthy social media use. So one of the things I appreciated about Sarah's talk just a few moments ago is she mentioned things that she does to navigate social media effectively. Things like talking about how we can set timers for our own self, talking about how or why we use social media, discussing the challenges we face. Even as adults, we can become overwhelmed by the information, and oftentimes they cause emotional reactions within us as well. We also want to set guidelines, explain why they've been established, and abide by them. So, talking about why we have limits on the amount of time that we're looking at screens, or setting expectations for putting the screens away for during certain times of the day is important, and it helps our students to foster those skills they need to navigate social media effectively. So if you can turn to the next slide, please. We want to remember that our aim is not to navigate social media for our youth, but to equip them with the necessary tools, advice, and digital literacy skills to build a healthy relationship with social media themselves. And one of the ways that they can do that is to learn to apply a critical lens to the information that they're receiving. So if you can turn to the next slide, please. We want to remind our young people that gaining context about the news that they're reading about can reduce any anxiety that they may experiencing regarding any concerns about uncertainty about credibility and veracity of the information that they're receiving. And there's a technique that they can use to do this. So on the next slide, we'll talk about the SIFT method. So SIFT stands for stop, which means taking a moment before you read, share, or use a source until you can verify that it's reliable. And you can do that by investigating the source, doing those fact checks, or reading laterally across multiple sites to verify information on one site versus another, looking for better coverage, and then tracing any claims, quotes, or media to the original context. On the next slide, we'll go over a little bit about news media bias. There's a lot of information here. I won't be going over everything, but we do want to be aware that there is sometimes bias in the information that we're receiving. So you want to look at, is this news or is it an opinion piece? We want to recognize that bias occurs on a spectrum and think about bias as it might appear in different forms. On the next page, we want to ask ourselves how credible the information is. So, fake news is information that's very surprising. It's even unbelievable. It's from a website that's not part of a credible news, academic, or governmental organization. The author's biography or previous articles demonstrate bias when it comes to that issue, and the key points can't be corroborated by other credible sites. Information might be considered questionable if it's surprising but not necessarily unbelievable, if that website still isn't part of a credible organization, and there may be signs of bias, but most of the key points can be corroborated elsewhere. Credible news is information that may or may not be surprising, but it makes sense. The website is part of a credible news, academic, or governmental organization. The author hasn't demonstrated any clear bias on the issue, and it's not an editorial or opinion piece. And all of the key points in that article can be corroborated by other credible sites. So, whenever you're looking at information, as we'll see on the next slide, we want to ask ourselves a couple questions. What is the source's goal in sharing this information? And is it on my feed or is it something that I searched for? Because we know that with our algorithms, we tend to be shown things that either align with what we're thinking or cause us to engage in some way. So it can cause that echo chamber effect where you're continually being shown the same types of content. And we also may inadvertently promote sensationalized news or that misinformation. So if you notice that you're beginning to feel overwhelmed, you'll see on the next slide that that's a normal part of having access to this amount of information. And we want to identify what emotions that post or headline is evoking. We know that we feel first when we take in new information. So ask yourself how that information is making you feel. Does it make you feel optimistic and happy? Or do you feel scared, shocked, or sad? Or a mix of those emotions? We want to remember that those emotions might linger even if we scroll past that point. And so we want to have tools to manage those feelings. On the next slide, we'll go over ways that we can honor your emotions and take time to de-stress. The first is to step away from your phone. Turn it off and remember that you don't have to keep scrolling or investigate further right at that moment. You can also use a coping or relaxation strategy, things like grounding techniques. Maybe you're using that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and focusing on your senses. Maybe you're doing some deep breathing or taking a walk outdoors. And you also want to consider where and who you can go to for support. Oftentimes, when we see things that provoke big emotions, we want to engage with others about that piece of information. And sometimes we can come in hot. On the next page, we'll talk about ways that we can stay cool. And when we say cool, what we mean is an acronym that stands for remaining calm. So you want to take a deep breath and relax before you engage. Remember, it's important to think about if that source is reliable before you share it. Remain open minded. You want to consider ideas that may be different from yours and remain focused on those ideas, separating your judgments about who people are from the things that they're saying and listening actively. Our aim is to understand the person's ideas, experiences, and emotions. And if you're being exposed to news that causes those big emotions repeatedly, you want to use that algorithm to your benefit. So on the next page, there's just a reminder that you can click the not interested button or the dislike button on apps like YouTube or Instagram to see less of that type of information in your news feed. So the next page has some additional resources. A lot of this information came from these sources as well. We have Good for Media News Guide. We have Common Sense Media's News and Media Literacy Resource Center, as well as the News Literacy Project. And each of these resources has excellent pieces of information that you can use to not only foster that appropriate social media youth, but engage in difficult conversations with the young people that you have in your life. The next page is all of the references for what we did today. And again, I so appreciate you having me here. You're going to get a lot of additional resources to help with these conversations and help our students to navigate times that can be challenging. So thank you again.
Thank you, Amy. We appreciate you. I am super excited to introduce Melissa Cairo. Melissa is the Outreach Programs Manager at Wellness Together, where she has worked for the past 5 years, leading efforts to expand access to mental health resources for students, educators, and families. She plays a key role in initiatives like the Wellness Education Lab, promoting mental health education and awareness in school communities. Thank you, Melissa, for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Pam. Hello, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well. I am very excited to share a little bit about Wellness Education Lab with you. I am going to just drop the link to Wellness Education Lab in the chat so that you can take a look at it. But for now, I will walk you through what we're going to be talking about. So I was super excited when the CDE reached out and asked us to be a part of this webinar. Election season causes me a lot of stress. I'm sure it causes all of you a lot of stress. And I know that it causes our students a lot of stress. So our hope is that this platform can be a resource for your students and families and even for yourself over the coming weeks. All right, next slide. So just a little bit about Wellness Together. Wellness Education Lab is a program of Wellness Together. It was created in partnership with the California Department of Education And just a little bit about Wellness Together. We're a nonprofit organization. We partner with schools and districts to provide in-person, on-campus mental health and crisis intervention support. I'd be happy to give you more information about that. Feel free to reach out if you have questions. Next slide. So next is what is WELL? So WELL is what we call Wellness Education Lab. It's shorter and easier. It is a suite of free evidence-based asynchronous mental health training modules. It was created for students 11 and older, educators and school staff, and parents and guardians. Modules are interactive, self-led, and only take about 45 minutes each to complete. And the parent and guardian versions are also available in Spanish. So next, we want to talk a little bit about the content author. So we worked very closely with Dr. Cherokee to create the content for WELL. He's an expert in acceptance and commitment therapy for youth, and is in the top 1% of cited scientists in the world for youth well-being. So we were super proud to have him as part of this project. So what will participants gain? Really, they're going to gain insights in managing mental health on a daily basis and learn when to seek help for themselves or something else, or someone else. And that includes the importance of making healthy decisions to support mental health, why resilience is so important and how to develop it, understanding anxiety, what happens in your body when you experience anxiety, and ways to manage anxious thoughts and feelings. So this resource is really a resource not just for students, but for whole school communities. So students, parents, and school staff. We want everybody to be able to utilize it. They can be taken by students, bus drivers, school counselors, parents, coaches, caretakers, and everyone in between. And you will see they're kind of broken up, and I'll show you they're kind of broken up by audience on the site. The next thing I just want to touch on before we jump into the content a little bit is the fact that we did create WELL with SB 224 in mind. We wanted to be able to fulfill those requirements. So it provides mental health training aligned with SB 224 for students 11 plus. We do have completion certificates, so if you need to monitor that's also available. And so if you have questions about that, you could reach out. Okay, so now I do want to just talk through what are these modules and what are participants going to be learning about. So we can go to the next slide. Great. Okay, so right now we have 2 main modules and 1 skills lab. The first module is Mental Health Foundations. In Mental Health Foundations, participants will review 5 building blocks of mental health and how to use them. In the Rethinking Anxiety module, participants will learn where anxiety comes from, why it's important, and how to manage it. And then Oliver is just a short skills lab, and we're actually going to be going over it today as a group. I thought that it would be helpful for all of us to just go over that in this pre-election season, moving into post-election season. So first, I'll just want to show you a little bit about each of the other 2 modules. So we'll start with Mental Health Foundations. Mental Health Foundations walks participants through 5 building blocks for strong mental health. We have values, resilience, community, seeking help, and life skills. And for each of these building blocks, there's an activity to explore how to build strength in that area. And so in a second, I'm going to walk you through an example of one of these activities that's in the resilience area. But first, wanted to point out on this screen this little character that you see here, the little purplish bluish character named Xenon. Xenon is kind of the mascot of WELL, that has no gender, race, or ethnicity. Our goal is that any participant would be able to relate to Xenon. Okay, so let's move into our first example from our trainings here. So during the resilience block, participants read through scenarios and decide which action would best build resilience and therefore strengthen their mental health in the long run. So in this scenario, Xenon has a very important test the next day at school, and participants are given these 2 options to choose from. So what would be the better choice to build resilience is the question. So Xenon puts the phone away 2 hours before going to bed and gets 8 hours of sleep, versus Xenon avoids thinking about the test by scrolling through TikTok until 2 a.m. So obviously we know the answer, and some students might even be able to cite the answer, but our goal is that seeing it here is like a very obvious way to say, hey, you're actually not building resilience when you do this, and encourage them to make the choices that will help build resilience and strengthen their mental health, as I said, in the long run. So that is an example from Mental Health Foundations. Now let's move over to rethinking anxiety. This module teaches participants about where anxiety comes from and how it's actually meant to help us, but can easily start to derail us if we don't know how to manage it and use coping skills. So they explore 5 different learning areas which build on each other throughout the module. They're called Your Life, Your Way, Ancestor Island, Two Doors, Reimagining Anxiety, and Leap into Life. Um, I'm going to just show you real quick an example of an interactive thing, just like we did for the other one, but this one will be for rethinking anxiety. So, um, as you can see here, there are 3 diving boards, and then there's a little pool ladder on the right. Um, the point of Leap into Life, it's kind of at the end of all of the trainings, and we've talked about anxiety and things that you can do, what anxiety does in your body, why it's there. And then we're kind of getting into the nitty-gritty here in Leap into Life, which is actionable steps, the nitty-gritty of actionable steps. And so students have a choice to kind of pick some general themes that they would like to take actionable steps on. So the one that I selected here is maybe somebody who is suffering a little bit or dealing with some social anxiety. And so the what we ask the participant to do is to sort these 4. So you would say, okay, which is the hardest? Is it saying hi to someone new? Is it joining a school club? Is it sitting next to a new person in class or at lunch? Every student is different, every person is different. So this might be one thing might be easier for one thing might be more difficult for another. So what they would do is they would pull them, to the appropriate spot. And then we say, hey, now that you've pulled them there, you have the power. You decide which step you want to take. Do you want to go all the way to the big diving board and take that big leap? Or if you're not ready for that, just dip your toe in the pool and do the small one with the ladder. So we really want to empower students to make the choice about what is going to be the best action step for them while still guiding them through what appropriate action steps would be. So that's a little bit about the rethinking anxiety module. um, Next, I did want to, as I mentioned earlier, walk everybody who is in the webinar briefly through our Oliver Skills Lab. Oliver is an acronym that we use to help take action when we think somebody else may be struggling. And really, you can also use it on yourself as a reflection as well. The letters stand for observe, listen, inquire, validate, encourage, refer. And so we're just going to go, I'm going to take us through this pretty quickly here through each letter. So the first one is O. So when someone is struggling, you may observe changes in their behavior or appearance. And really, this is going to be helpful for us as we move into election season because you might start to observe some of these changes in students who are suffering from some election anxiety. So changes in hygiene, changes in behavior, such as sleeping in class when something they didn't do before, angry outbursts, crying, socially isolating, avoiding friends and activities, and absences from school, things like that. The next would be listening for changes as well. So listening for statements that may signal a need for help, including not wanting to live, talking about violent things or harming themselves or others, negative statements about themselves, any talk about being bullied or harassed online, and then any statement that evokes hopelessness or helplessness, like I feel like this will never get better. What's the point of continuing to do this? Things like that. So if you are observing any of the things on the last thing or listening to any of these, the next step would be to inquire. And so inquiring is just asking a question. How long have you been feeling this way? Have you asked for help? Are you thinking about ending your life? What can I do to support you? And just opening up the table for conversation is this inquire step. And then we move on to validate. So validating somebody's experience can just help them show that their feelings matter. Some statements is it's okay to feel the way you do. Sometimes we skip this validation straight to getting them help. But I think it's important to say it's okay to feel the way that you do. You're not alone in feeling that way. Your feelings are valid. Thank you for sharing with me. And then even before we get to that last step, we're going to go to encourage. So not only are we validating feelings, but we're saying, hey, there's hope and help available for you. Things can get better. You're not alone in your struggles. You're stronger than you realize. So once we've done all that, then we move on to refer, which is that R. So these are just some resources here, depending on your role as you're joining here today. I'm sure you have a whole list of how you would refer a student or a friend or a loved one. But these ones are pretty standard, like calling or texting 988, talking to a safe adult, a trusted adult at school or at home, or calling 911. So that is just a little bit about our Oliver training, which might be helpful as we're moving into this stressful season, as I mentioned. The last thing I want to do is just show you how to actually log on to Well. So I dropped the link in the chat, Wellness Ed Lab. If you go there, you can click Start Training Now. There are a couple different places where you see that pink button. Next, you are going to just be led to a little log on here. You can either log on by email. So next option is Google, and then the last option is Clever. And that one, we have to be connected on the back end. If your district or school uses Clever, feel free to reach out to me and we'll get connected on the back end. Once you've done that, you can choose from some of our trainings, such as Oliver, and then you'll have Rethinking Anxiety for Students, Rethinking Anxiety Mental Health Foundations for Students, and then some of those will say for parents or for educators. Then you'll be taken to a Get Started screen. You just click Get Started and you'll be on your way. And then at the end, you'll receive a certificate of completion. And that is it. So let me know if you have any questions, happy to answer them. And look forward to hearing from some of you who may want to partner more to use this as like a school or district-wide option. It's a totally free resource. So thanks for having me today.
Melissa, that's wonderful. It's a great resource. I dropped it in the chat regarding that with our Senate Bill 224 and the expansion of mental health instruction. This is a great place to find the resources you need. Okay, so thank you. And next up, we have our very own Pam Kahuka, who is a part of our CDE team and is one of our statewide content experts in mental health. Pam, would you mind joining me on stage? I don't know, I went like this, Pam. Sorry. Come on up, Pam.
You, Carrie. Hello, everyone, again. So we all need spaces to hold conversations when we express our thoughts and feelings. We need safe spaces to hold conversations. And this is why I'm lifting up our social and emotional learning competencies and conditions for learning. Social and emotional learning is a necessary and integral part of education and human development, where all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. These are our skills, our competencies we all need for school and life, and reflects the critical role of positive relationships and emotional connections in the learning process. So how? Well, we have to value positive relationships and belongings as conditions for learning and promote educational climates that are welcoming, inclusive, culturally responsive, identity affirming, and empowering for all students, staff, and our families. This is how we advance educational equity and excellence and establish learning environments and experiences that embody trusting and collaborative relationships. So the slide prior, if you could move back to the circled slide, yes. So, it's a complicated slide, but it's so beautiful because it includes the competencies, it includes the transformational process that we need to co-create the conditions for learning. As I said, to develop our identities, belonging, and relationship skills and connectedness. So, process of systemic SEL can help address various forms of inequity and empower us. young people and adults to co-create the thriving schools and contribute to safe, healthy, and just communities. The next slide. A few years ago, CDE and many amazing experts in SEL came together to weave competency indicators and conditions that are important to exist for learning. I am going to refer you to our CDE webpage, Transformative SEL Conditions for Thriving Social and Emotional Learning. It's massive and rich with content. But here on this slide are examples of competency indicators and conditions. We have competency indicators such as co-create an engaging and equitable classroom and learning community, and ensure identity, agency, and a sense of belonging with cultural humility and mutual respect. Conditions for thriving would look like safe spaces ensured on campus, continually assessing areas in need of collective growth, and across all settings, create a continuum of conditions that support our students in all ways. The next slide. In this 2024 election climate, Transformative SEL provides a crucial framework for ensuring equity, respect, and belonging. I can't say that enough, equity, respect, and belonging. By co-creating classroom communities that reflect our diverse voices so that our students have ownership, that to ensure safe spaces, so dedicated spaces such as peace room and calming centers, and continually assessing our growth needs. Educators can foster environments where students feel secure, valued, and empowered. Integrating these SEL competencies and conditions helps students navigate challenging social and political realities while building resilience and empathy. Next slide. Thank you for all you do to serve our school communities.
Thank you so much, Pam. I always appreciate sharing space with you. And thank you for the information about creating the opportunities for having voice and a safe space. I have the pleasure now of introducing Shanti Bond Martinez, MPH, she, her, hers. Shanti is a senior project manager with the Youth Creating Change and leads the Hope and Justice Film and Art Contest, which integrates art, storytelling, and creative activism into mental health and suicide prevention curricula. With over a decade of experience in community-based projects, she focuses on inclusive programs development that amplifies diverse youth voice. Shanti, do you want to come on up here with me?
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. Thank you for your time today. It's a pleasure being here on behalf of Youth Creating Change. And on the next slide, you'll see a little bit more about what we do. So we are dedicated to placing young people's voices and creativity at the center of suicide prevention and mental health programming. So what does that really mean? Well, through suicide prevention and mental health curriculum delivered through film and art contests, we see youth all throughout California, ages 12 to 25, participating in this opportunity to get creative in something that isn't always a fun or exciting topic to be discussing, as many of you who work with young people might know. So as part of our film and art contest, through facilitation of lesson plans, youth learn about mental health. They're trained on how to recognize warning signs for suicide. They apply healthy coping techniques, and they learn how to seek help for themselves or a friend. And so once these young people receive their lessons around these topics, they then can apply what they've learned to create their own films or art projects. Youth also have an opportunity to respond to prompts each month as part of our Hope and Justice Art Contest. And so that's really a contest that's designed to encourage creative expression around different mental health and social justice topics. And so that's where we see this kind of learn, apply, share model, which we've seen some really beautiful things come out of that for young people. And as I mentioned, our Hope and Justice Art Contest, on the next slide, you'll see that this contest results in young people being able to express themselves in a way that they may not have the opportunity to do on a daily basis. So through our Hope and our Justice contest, we're seeing young people be able to center topics that they might be grappling with every day, whether it's mental health, racism, economic uncertainty, climate change, health disparities, or, for instance, what we're discussing today around the election. We have a opportunity each month for young people to really tell them, hey, this is your chance. Express yourself through art. Process the feelings you're going through in a positive and impactful format. So we ask youth every month to either submit an art piece around the topic of hope. So what does hope look like for them, right? How are they coping through these tough times and these complex feelings? Or the topic of justice. What are they seeing in their communities, in their lives, in our country that are important topics to them around social justice that they want others to know about? Or we offer a prompt each month that changes. And we do that because we know young people are thinking about different things every month, right? Every day, every hour. But each month, it's something new for them to explore and get creative about. So some of the prompts that we have coming up this year include how to find support via 988, right? How to actually promote that as a resource, how to access free mental health resources like a new app, the Saluna app, what it means to find your anchor. What does that mean? You know, what keeps you grounded in your life? Is it a person? Is it a thing? Is it journaling? And then also we're asking, you know, what are some healthy activities and what can self-care look like? And so both of these programs are free for all youth throughout California, ages 12 to 25 to participate in. And our annual contest has a submission deadline for films for March 1. And then our Hope and Justice contest, as I said, is monthly. So that's an opportunity for youth every month. Youth can submit these art pieces in any form. So we see all types of art. Here you see a few of our digital and visual art pieces, but we also receive poetry, radio PSAs, 60-second film PSAs, TikToks. We get a lot of TikToks. We love them. Sketches, original music, anything you can imagine. So we're really hoping that young people can use this as an opportunity to be creative in a way that supports them best. And the next slide, why we're here on this webinar is because our prompt for October is what this election means to me. So you know, in the weeks leading up to election, this is a great opportunity for students to explore and express their feelings about what this election means to them. A lot of young people, you know, they're not quite 18 years old, they're not able to vote, but what does it mean to still have an active role in what's going on in the election? What are other people thinking about? So we're asking young people to think about that. And the next slide, you'll see that we're really hoping that all of you can use this prompt to help young people kind of process these complex emotions, right, in the safe, creative means. So some of the discussion ideas that we have, questions we're asking them is like, you know, what impact has the election and news coverage of the election had on your mental health? Let's break that down, right? Write us a poem, you know, write us a short story, paint something, you know, or make a short film or a TikTok about what you're feeling. You know, what steps are you taking to process these feelings and take care of your mental health? Maybe what does representation and elected leaders mean to you if that's something that's important? You know, what are some issues that you hear being discussed in your community or on TV, on social media that are important to you or that you're confused about or that you'd like to learn more about? And also maybe, you know, one great activity that we've seen some of our educators use is, you know, use this opportunity to write a letter, you know, to a presidential candidate or a local candidate. Share what issues are important to you, to your community. And so in discussing these things and processing these feelings, we're really hoping young people can engage in some constructive conversations, whether it's in a classroom, whether it's among friends or in their communities with their caregivers at home. You know, during this time, we've heard from a lot of young people that they maybe don't feel like their voice matters or that they feel lost in some of these conversations, but this is really an opportunity to center young people's feelings and their thoughts and allow them to lead the conversations through creation of their art. These questions are a great way to, you know, start conversations as youth kind of process these complex emotions and also feel safe in having a outlet, right, for processing that and thinking about these topics. So this isn't the first time we've offered this prompt to young people. In November of 2020, during that election, we offered the same opportunity to young people across the state. We said, hey, what's going on? What does it mean for young people to contribute to political engagement? How are you taking care of your mental health? What's going on? So this is just an example of one of the pieces we received back in 2020 from a young person in San Diego County. They created a art piece around Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They felt they wanted to learn more about her as a justice, and it inspired them to create this beautiful piece. It's one of the pieces that I actually printed and had framed. It's just so beautiful, but just one example of how young people were able to explore certain topics related to the election and in a creative way. And on the next slide, you'll see another piece from a ninth grader in Riverside County who shared what representation meant to them. And this also allowed them to think about their own identity and their beliefs and who they are. And they were encouraged to also empower and inspire others to think about these topics. So I share these with you because we will be announcing, so the deadline for our October prom contest is the end of October. And then in early November, we will know our winners. We'll be sharing out a lot of these on our website, these youth pieces. And so I encourage you to check back in with us, share out these pieces as well, use them as a conversation starter with the youth and young people that you work with. Oftentimes, young people might feel alone in the feelings they're having, and if they can see art and these beautiful pieces of work from other young people, it can be very validating. It can help them see that they're not alone in their feelings, and it's really okay to feel how they feel, and maybe also encourage them to use art as a way to share their own feelings and their own stories. And on the next slide, I want to share resources that we've created. So we know that having these conversations with young people can be difficult. It can be difficult having these conversations among ourselves, right, as adults. So we've created a lesson plan guide that has a variety of free, nonpartisan curriculum that you can share with your youth. So other topics like civic engagement, learning fact and fiction, right, media literacy, confirmation bias, voting rights, what the influence of social media and the algorithm can have on the information that you see around the election. And also, there's some really great curriculum around the history of youth-led movements in the United States. And so it can be really powerful for young people to see that they have a place in these conversations and figure out what that place is and share their voice in a creative way. And also, as you may have seen on one of the earlier slides, it is a contest. So there is an opportunity to win some really fun cash prizes and also have their art pieces shared out widely. So the next slide is another resource I'd like to share, which is our mental health survival kit. These kits are popular among young people, but also teachers and adults. Every time we share these out, we get just as many youth who are interested as teachers and counselors. And I love mine. My kids love theirs. So it's a great resource. It celebrates wellness. It promotes positive coping skills for young people. There are these really great, easy to follow activities, including journaling prompts that promote reflection and self-expression. Really cute design with some breathing and grounding techniques. There are coloring pages. I know those are really popular now, as well as information about mental health and suicide and crisis resources. These kits are just a beautiful way for young people to, again, know that there are ways for them to explore what they're going through and to self-express in a positive, healthy way. So these kits are available in English and Spanish. We also have a Korean American adapted one, as well as a Filipino American adaptation. So you can download the digital version of these kits for yourself on our website. You can also reach out to us to be added to our wait list to receive an actual printed copy of these that are really, really fun to hand out. A great resource for young people. We're doing our best to get all of those out on the wait list as we can get them printed. So please check those out if you are interested. And For the next slide, if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, how do I get involved? How can I get my students, my youth, to be able to take part in this? So again, it's a free program available for young people ages 12 to 25. I encourage you first to download and share our Hope and Justice monthly prompt calendar. So, October is, we're still in October, but it's coming to an end. Don't worry if you don't think this is something that your young people can take part in, if it's specifically about the election prompt. We have different prompts every month, so you can check out what those are. You can also learn more about our October's prompt around the election and get your young people participating in that. You can also volunteer to judge some of these pieces. We receive hundreds of pieces every year. More than 1,000 films were submitted last year, so we need all of the support we can get. It's a really fun experience to be able to view these beautiful art and a very beautiful, inspiring, just incredible. Like, these are young people really sharing themselves and processing some really important things. So please volunteer to judge if you have time. It's all done virtually from your own home. We also would love if you could share and use some of these youth-created short films, these PSAs, and also check out our virtual art gallery where you can use some of these youth-created art. We always love to see our youth art or their short films shared during meetings, during webinars, used as an icebreaker activity to start conversations if you're talking with young people or other adults. There is also the opportunity, as I said, post-election, we'll be sharing out some of the winning pieces and some of our favorite pieces from October's prompt. So use that to say, hey, the election's over. How are we feeling? Take a look at this piece of art that this young people created, or hey, check out this TikTok. Have you seen, like, this person is exploring what they're feeling and how they're coping? So lots of different ways to use youth-created art and film. If you'd like to continue to receive more information about our programs, please subscribe to our newsletter. We are also always available to facilitate lesson plans for free to any of your schools, clubs, or organizations. Happy to talk more with you about how we can bring our programs to your young people, wherever you are. And so I want to end with sharing a short video that highlights some of our incredible youth filmmakers who participated in our Directing Change Film Contest last year. So if you just take a minute, we'll take a look at this.
The prevalence of mental health issues in teens is hard to measure, but research has shown nearly half of high schoolers feel persistently sad or hopeless. One group thinks a message of hope can be shared through the lens of young people themselves. Philip Palmer explains.
I've been feeling sad and want to cry all the time.
Young people sharing stories about mental health as a way to offer encouragement and connection is the mission of Youth Creating Change. The group's signature program, the Directing Change Film Contest, recently honored student-created films, which expressed the filmmakers' perspectives on mental health and suicide prevention.
It's okay to reach out and talk to others.
Young people are creating these films on their iPhones with limited technology, and they're coming up with genuine, sincere projects intended to reach their peers in a moment when they might be feeling low or at a low point and they need to see this help, and the projects are just amazing.
Sometimes you can feel lost in the dark for a long time.
Youth Creating Change partners with schools across the state throughout the year to provide curriculum, training, and awareness activities that keep young people at the center of their own well-being. The program has seen positive effects on school climates and increased student willingness to talk about important health topics.
I've learned a bit about not only just how to approach people with mental health issues, but if I'm going through a mental health issue myself, to, open up and seek help.
Let's normalize conversations about little hurts so that we're not sweeping it under the rug and hiding it in the closet until it becomes a combustible situation.
Reggie Hernandez is a senior at Highland Park High School, and his film earned honorable mention out of 1,300 submitted across the state. Projects by teens centered on destigmatizing mental illness.
It really brings their voice to life. Oftentimes, adults miss the mark. So I think it's important that sometimes us as adults step aside and hear what the youth have to say about what their struggles are instead of us trying to explain it to them.
I hope people learn that it's okay to speak out about things, about their personal issues, about things that are going on inside, and that they aren't crazy when they talk about it. They aren't just like a voice in the wind. We're listening. We're here for you.
I have a real solution, and this one's not a joke. Get help.
At the height of the COVID pandemic, youth mental health was a topic many adults talked openly about. But with the masks gone, Youth Creating Change knows now more than ever it's important teens never feel alone.
We spoke this message of youth mental health being important, and they believed us. Now we got to follow through, and now we got to continue to show up. The prevalence.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know I'll end with, I just know that as all of us are here, we're supporting young people, and it can feel overwhelming. But I do want to remind us all, as you saw in that video, that oftentimes youth can be at the center of these conversations. They can be the answer to helping other young people to feel supported, to feel that they are not alone and that their emotions and feelings matter. And so we hope that you will use this opportunity to bring some programs to your young people so that they know that there are so many opportunities for them to share their voice, their art, their passion, and process what they're feeling in a way that can impact so many people. So thank you again. Here on the screen, you see our Directing Change Film Contest. That's directingchangeca.org. Also our Hope and Justice Contest. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. And we can't wait to see more inspiring, beautiful pieces of art from all our young people in the state. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Shanti. Such incredible resources and great talent by our students. Next, we'll have a mindful moment, and I'm going to credit Headspace. So if you'll engage with me, sitting comfortably, just taking a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. As you breathe in, noticing how the body expands. As you breathe out, just watching the body soften. You can gently close the eyes if that feels comfortable for you. And rather than the mind leading the breath, allow the breath to lead the mind. Notice the sensation of the breath. Notice it where you feel it in the body. If you need, you can gently place your hand on the stomach and just follow that rising and falling sensation. Nothing else to do. Allowing thoughts to come and go. And when you're ready, just gently open the eyes again. I'm so happy to introduce Lori Woodley Langendorf. She's a lifelong school counselor, CEO and founder of All It Takes, producer of the award-winning A Trusted Space films, is dedicated to creating spaces where students and educators thrive. She is widely recognized for her expertise in developing award-winning experiential SEL programs and delivering impactful speaking engagements and training in California and beyond. All It Takes is a proud partner of the Cal Hope Schools Initiative. Thank you for joining us, Lori.
Thank you, Pam, and all of the amazing presenters before me with all of the resources that are so game-changing for our students. I really appreciate being here. Before I get started and talk about ourselves, I want to just share a resource that's available to you through Cal Hope Schools and through All It Takes or A Trusted Space. And that's a series of films. So often as educators, we have all these great ideas and we don't necessarily have the entry point or the knowledge on how to start the conversation with our kids. And the series of films that are brought to you by Cal Hope Schools in partnership with All It Takes, and also Youth Creating Change. Shanti is also another partner in the Cal Hope Schools program. The 4 films that really relate to what we're talking about on this webinar, and I just thought I needed to point this out, are Decoding Behavior, which is an adult-forward 20-minute film on the neuroscience about what's happening to our kids when their emotions or their behaviors are out of control, but they don't know why. It's so powerful for an educator, an adult in the room to understand. And then Navigating Storms is the film directly for them, 4th graders up, to really see for themselves what's going on for them. Neuroscience has so many answers that we don't necessarily know, and they're not necessarily presented in a way that's approachable, which these films are. And the last 2 to talk about right now is Common Ground and Building Bridges. As we talk about post-election and our communities that are, in many communities in division, and there's divisiveness on campuses, these films can help students and adults find ways forward and like the entry point to have conversations. So I invite you to access through calhopeschools.org or atrustedspace.org. And at calhopeschools.org, you can find other resources also that will help you through film show your students and your staff information that then creates the conversation. So thank you for letting me share that. And now let's talk about, next slide, what happens when we're so focused on everyone but ourselves. And there's so many resources. Everybody who shared resources today, the resources I just shared. And if we are not taking really good care of ourselves, how can we manage the overwhelming amount of emotion, obligation, and need that's in front of us? And I think it's really important for us to really look within at ourselves. And so often in education, we're being told, take care of yourself, but take care of those kids, which is true, right? That's why we're here. We're here to take care of, to support, to serve the youth that are in front of us, regardless of the role that we have. But sometimes we forget about ourselves, and then we find ourselves in a place where we're not really okay. Next slide, please. And we hear all the time, self-care is not selfish, but sometimes we forget that self-care really isn't a bubble bath. Self-care is about managing our wellness. And selfish is never a part of an educator, a parent's person. Like, we are not selfish if we are serving kids. Selfish is, personal profit or pleasure, and that's all we're focused on. That is not happening if we're in service to kids. But self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve our health. And very humbly, I share the story of this plant because I was this is my plant. Yes, that's embarrassing. And I was in such a hustle, working, getting kids off and all the things that I was doing, that I was missing what this plant needed. And at the same time, in parallel, I was missing some of what I was needing. And so we sometimes lose sight of our own wellness. And then we think about it. So I'm going to invite you now to use the chat. And I believe the chat has been opened for you to just look at this plant and yourself and what are the consequences. Just drop them into chat. Like, when you are not well, when you haven't slept well, when you feel like you can't get to the entire list, when you feel like you're missing the needs of some of your kids, what is happening within you and what are the consequences? For me, it's shutdown. I withdraw, I retreat, and I'm not at my best with especially the people that I care about the most. And I think it's important that we look at the consequences rather than only the rewards, because usually if we look at the consequences, we're like, oh, wow, that doesn't feel good. But the good news is, and if you look at this plant, the good news is there's resiliency in all of us. And this plant is really in need of care. It needed love, it needed water, it needed all the things that we need to provide for ourselves that we're being asked to provide for others. but there's always that spark. And with a little bit of care, little bit of energy, we can come back. Sometimes it's sleep too. And if we don't do that for ourselves, we can be really compromised in offering out to others what we want to provide for others. And I'll tell you, I think that you would agree that anybody in serving our older kids, if we aren't doing what we ask of them, we're hypocrisy radar. They are hypocrisy radars, and they're going to call us out, or we're going to lose credibility. Next slide, please. Lack of focus. Thank you for sharing. I get short-tempered if I don't take care of myself. Overwhelmed. My head spins. I get short-tempered too. Yep, me too. And then what happens, I think, is that we go home and whoever we love the most are the ones who pay the biggest price for us not taking care of ourselves. We give so much during the day that we have very little to give back at night with those we love. And so in some ways it feels counterintuitive, like, why would I not take care of myself so I can take care well of those I love the most? But we are in such service to others, we sometimes lose track. So let's flip it. What are the benefits? If you're taking care of yourself, what are the benefits to you and to others? And as you drop that down in the chat, think of some practices that you use. Now, one of the things I'd like to share is that, and you'll see this on the next slide, but practices are only as good as they need to be good for you. And I want you to consider some practices that you've started and stopped. Why? Sometimes it's because we start things that other people tell us we're supposed to do. We'll discover and unlayer that in a moment a little bit more. But what are some benefits? Like, who are you as a person with others that you care about at work or home or out in the community, at church or wherever you are? Who are you being when you have enough rest, when you've eaten sufficiently, when you're managing your stress? What are the benefits? I don't see any, but I see the short-tempered, but what's happening in the chat here on what are the benefits? So the thing is that self-care, if we look at it a little differently than the bubble bath that many of us don't even have a bathtub to have, is self-care is about living with grace and ease. Like, I get to commit, you get to commit, we get to wish for and hold each other up for a life of grace and ease. And that means that when it's not easy, we're navigating it healthily. Guilt-free permission to live your life. We all know people who have not gotten enough days. This is your lifetime too. And the better you are managing your life, the better you're helping your students and your colleagues and your friends. And then caution of the opinions of others. The opinions of others often get in our head. You ought to go for a walk. You ought to be in nature. You ought to meditate. You ought to. Some of us, the minute we hear ought to, we shut down right then. So we don't even give it a shot. So with a little love and care, that same plant, just like myself that was so depleted, came back. And that's possible for us too. Let's see, 5 new messages, more balance and peace. Get more funny and energetic. Like, some of us lose our humor and we're so good at it. It's such a shame when we're not taking care of ourselves. More positive attitude, more energy, confident, courageous, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Next slide. So I think I want to share one more time. It's really important that self-care only makes sense to you. And anybody who's trying to tell you that you're doing it wrong or needs to be a certain way, there is your way. And I want to share, these two amazing men are trainers for us at All It Takes. And they're both musicians. Being in front of a crowd with music or trying to sing brings me great anxiety. But for them, it brings them great peace and ease. For me, putting my feet in a river brings me great peace and ease, and it resets me. So self-care, wellness, it only has to make sense to you. So think about it and jot in the chat here, what are the things that might be unique? Like for me, passing a river, stopping, taking my shoes off, not jumping in it, but walking in it, sitting on a rock, peaceful for me. For Courtney and Dan, playing music in front of crowds, rapping for Courtney, on stage at church for Dan. Those are things that bring them great wellness. What is it that brings you great wellness? And share that out with one another, because we learn from each other. And then share it out with your colleagues. Like, this is what I do. What do you do? And let each person's thing be, one, something to celebrate, and two, something to learn from, and something to encourage them to do more of their way and your way. Next slide. And credibility. So again, back to the hypocrisy radars. Our kids and our colleagues know when we're pretending. They know, our family knows when we're pretending. I get reminded of that by someone I care about deeply, that I can pretend and smile, but it's not the same as my authentic self. So credibility comes when we model what we're asking of our kids. We want them to be healthy. We want them to manage their stress. We want them to use the tools that all the other presenters offered you. But if we don't have access to it, if we're not doing that, then it doesn't have the same meaning for them. And this picture is me. I will share this. And then, and it was a time when I was asking kids, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade students, to do this all day long over a weekend. And I saw myself terrified of it. But I was telling them, encouraging them to be courageous and to take on their fears and learn what's possible. And so I climbed one day, and then I flew. And that's a moment that I haven't repeated. I only needed to do it once, but I needed to do it for them. And I needed to do it for myself. And that was great self-care in that moment, even though it was terrifying. Next slide.
Thank you so much, Lori, for that presentation. I really appreciate all of your ideas and thoughts around self-care and just care in general. I want to thank everyone today for your presence, all our presenters, and for the audience and sharing space with us. And I want to remind you that a child is one caring adult away of changing their narrative. My ask for you is to be that one caring adult. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful afternoon.